Okay, Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. We're excited to have you as a guest.
You're welcome, Jesse. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, I want the audience to have a really good idea here. What inspired you to start in-demand recruitment over 20 years ago, and what's kept you in that executive search game all these years?
I sort of fell into this by accident. I'm from Edmonton and I moved to Vancouver to do my PhD in forensic psychology.
Hmm.
And last minute, I needed a job. So I actually went to an agency in Vancouver and they had sent me on 4 interviews and I had 4 job offers that Friday afternoon. And so on Monday, the president of the company had called me and said, I'd kind of like to meet you. And so I went in to meet her and she offered me a job as a recruiter assistant.
Hmm.
So that's how I ended up getting into the business. Loved it. I worked for the company in Vancouver for 5 years and then chose to move back to Edmonton and start my own agency. And that was 24 years ago in August.
Okay. And would you consider yourself, this is totally random, but would you consider yourself an extrovert?
I would consider myself an ambivert, actually. So
Okay.
I'm extroverted when I'm out in public, but I
Hmm.
really love my downtime, my alone time. So I
Yeah.
love solitude. I love being by myself at my house. I love golfing. But yeah, I'm social when I need to be, but I love that downtime too.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I love hearing what got you into the recruiting space. And usually what I'm seeing is most people love staying in recruiting because they love people, right? And talking to people and having that social interaction that you have because recruiting's such a personal, and we'll get into this later, but it's such a personal one-on-one. You're working one-on-one, you're working with your clients, you're speaking to candidates, making sure that these personalities fit together. And so I was just curious. That was just a total
Yeah,
random
of
question,
course, of
but
course. Yeah, I
um,
think most people that get into it, it's a love-hate relationship. You either absolutely love being a recruiter, you do really well at it, or you struggle. Like
yeah.
there's maybe 2% of the population that do really, really well in this work. And when you do, you stick with it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, so that the audience can have a good understanding here, who's your typical client and who's your typical candidate?
So typical clients, I would say we do everything. So in the recruitment industry, we're classified as generalists, meaning we
Hmm.
do absolutely everything. We tend to stay away from IT. That's the one realm that I don't recruit in at all. And I
Hmm.
think a typical client for in-demand would be mainly manufacturing would be a typical client for us, or an egg client. So we are pretty busy all across North America. So we used to just be in Canada. Now we're actually across North America. And I would say typical for us is manufacturing. So a lot of engineering, a lot of manufacturing. We do a bit of sales, but I find that, yeah, manufacturing is where it's at because you can run the gamut from like sort of a shipper receiver all the way to an engineering manager and everything in between. So it keeps you really, really busy in that realm.
Yeah, yeah. And looking at what's trending with your typical candidates and your typical clients, what is something that companies are demanding now that they weren't demanding 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, it depends. I think in the US, more of our clients are demanding that they are a US citizen. So the
Mm.
visas are becoming a big deal right now. They used to
Yeah.
take the TN1 visa and that used to be okay. But now I think the political landscape has changed quite a bit. And so they
Yeah.
are demanding that you are a US citizen.
Mm.
Same thing in Canada. Like we're obviously needing less of the LMIAs and more of that being a Canadian resident and education. So university degrees, there's clients that could find a perfect candidate that has 20 years experience. And if you don't have a degree, they won't even look at you.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's becoming tough for sure because there's a lot of great, especially in the oil and gas realm,
Uh-huh.
in Texas or in Alberta. We're busier in Texas at the moment, but
Yeah.
yeah, like it's unfortunate because there's some really smart, I'm going to say, on your own educated candidates that
Mhm.
they unfortunately won't even get looked at by the bigger corporations because they don't have a university degree.
Interesting. I want to ask another question about, so
Yeah.
you're saying even if, just so listeners can get an understanding, even if they have 20 years of experience, because I've honestly been seeing it go another way. And I'm not saying you're wrong at all. I
Of course,
totally
yeah.
trust what your viewpoint. I love seeing that.
Yeah.
You're saying it's the other way. You're saying no, that some companies are saying no, don't even put that
Yes.
person in front of my face. Okay.
So we have some major, major clients, especially down in Texas area.
Uh-huh.
that are worldwide, and that has been just a no starter right out of the gate is the degree. So technically, they would love to see the engineering degrees,
Yeah.
chemical engineering, et cetera, mechanical engineering, but
Hmm.
any degree would do. But right out
Hmm.
of the gate, if someone has 20 years experience and they were grandfathered into that role, and then now they don't have a degree, they won't even get considered.
Okay.
Yeah, so it makes it
Okay.
tough for sure.
That does. Yes, it does, especially when you might have 20 years of successful experience.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you for
really
sharing
does.
that. Yeah,
Of
that is
course.
really good to know. And okay, let's create a scenario for the listeners that'll be listening to this. So let's say you have the education, you're a candidate, potential candidate, you're about to place for a client, right? They have the right education, they have the right background. Let's talk about something that's simple but might not actually be that well understood as email intros and that strong communication style. What do they do? What would you suggest for a candidate to do there?
Well, I would suggest for a candidate to be professional. I get probably 300 or 400 emails a day, and
Hmm.
you'd be surprised. The emails that come in are like text messages nowadays. What's up? How are you? With just a U and a question mark. So the professional capacity has gone out the window for a lot of it. Um,
Yeah.
no capitalization, no grammar, no periods, punctuation, etc. So I think for candidates that they have to treat sending an even just a intro email as a professional document. Like spell check it. Make sure my name is actually on there correctly, not sir. Like I get a lot of sirs. um,
Interesting.
and not being so lackadaisy. Like treat it
Mhm.
like it's a professional because I'm the gatekeeper for the client. So if I get an
Yeah.
email and there's a ton of spelling errors or my name's not on there or it's a different company that you've addressed as opposed to the one you're applying for, right out of the gate, you're going to get put in the trash box. Like I'm not even going to consider you because you didn't
Yeah.
take the time to be professional right out of the gate. So that shows me that I wouldn't want to put you in front of my client because you didn't take the time to even research the proper company name, et cetera. So I think treating it like it's a cover letter and addressing it correctly, professionally, because you have really one chance to impress.
Hmm. That's thank you for saying that. I think that's such a strong insight for potential candidates to see. Right? You
Mhm.
are the gatekeeper, right? And it is your
Mhm.
client that you're sticking your neck out for if you're bringing a candidate to their face, right? And to their
Exactly.
desk. And so it's very interesting. I know that, a lot of people when I communicate with them, they're very lackadaisical, but I'm not the one that has a position for them, right? So it's
Mhm.
good to know that a lot of people are doing that to people that really are making the decisions, doing the hiring. So pretty much just be professional. You'd think with AI, most people would be using some sort of AI just to spell check, make sure everything's in there, but that's not what you're seeing.
Well, speaking of AI, I would say maybe 2% of the population even uses it. Like even recruiters,
Interesting.
like there's a lot of recruiters that don't use it, don't know how to use it. It's has scared them because there's a lot of old school recruiters out there. And
Hmm.
so I think what's happening is like even when candidates call me and I know that I can't help them, I'll suggest like putting their resume through AI to make sure that has everything that it's needed. And I'll explain what clients look for, what recruiters look for to the candidate if they've taken the time to call me, but I can't do that work for them because
Hmm.
technically I've got 20 to 25 jobs a day on the go that I'm actually recruiting for. And that means headhunting. Like we don't post a lot of ads or anything. And
Yeah.
so yeah, like I said, you have that one chance to impress. So utilize AI, utilize Grammarly, utilize companies like yourself that, brand
Hmm.
them. Executive, especially executives. Like if, right now I'm hiring for a very senior level director of HR, and I'm shocked at some of the resumes that come through because I'm thinking, wow, this is like a $200,000 a year job, and you didn't even spell check your resume, and you're the HR director. So it's still open, actually, to be honest, because I've probably gone through 400 or 500 resumes and maybe sent the client four.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well,
Mhm.
I I actually we'll have to talk about that later. I might have somebody that would be
Yeah.
helpful for you. But what when we're talking about candidates listening, I'm going to switch the
Mhm.
gears just a little bit here. Um, what gets your attention, right? I mean, besides grammar, right? And making sure because I mean that's huge, and you'd think it's a basic thing. So I'm happy that we understand that. But what can executive candidates do to stand out to a boutique search firm like yourself?
I think for a candidate to stand out to us,
Mhm.
they have read the job description
Mhm.
and they have the skill set that's asked for. So unfortunately, I see thousands of resumes a day and they'll just say, hey, I'm perfect for this job. And it's like, did you actually read it? Like you don't even speak French. And right in the title, it says bilingual. So,
Yeah.
I think being cognizant of the skills that are asked for and only applying for things that you're actually qualified for. Because
Mhm.
unfortunately, we see thousands of resumes just being thrown to see which one sticks. And unfortunately, I think with bigger recruitment firms, that's technically the way they operate as well, is that they'll just keep throwing resumes at a client to see which one sticks. Whereas a
Mhm.
boutique firm actually takes the time to interview the candidate, write proper profiles, send them off to the client, and we're hired for a reason. So the client doesn't want those 500 resumes that I'm getting. They want 3 to 4, maybe 5 qualified applicants that they can interview, that they know have been interviewed properly, that have the skill set. And now when they meet them, they're just meeting them to see if it's a fit for the personality for their environment, like that corporate culture. And
Mhm.
so as a candidate, don't apply to everything if you're not qualified for it. Because if anything, like you get blacklisted. Like we have databases that we upload your resume into, and there's notes that go in there that say this person's applied 30 times to whatever job possible. So you'll never get past us and you'll never get
Yeah.
in front of the client. So I would suggest to candidates only apply for what you're qualified for.
Yeah. Be a little bit more strategic about it.
Of course, yeah. And when you're setting into a recruitment firm, have a cover letter. And
Mhm.
I don't want to see a 1 page resume, but I also don't want to see a 10 page resume. So I would say the sweet spot is probably a 2 page resume. Make sure
Mhm.
that you have um, percentages and numbers and quantifiable things on your resume that you've done in the past. Make
Mhm.
sure it's bullet pointed. It's spell checked. Like
Mhm.
you'd be shocked at the resumes that come in, especially from executive level, that they didn't
Mhm.
even spell check. They've even
Wow.
spelled Toyota wrong. And it's like, oh, did you work at Toyota or Toyota? Like,
Yeah.
I see that all the time. So it's like, just I guess treat your resume as if it's your first impression to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I there's a study actually on that and how just having that resume, I mean obviously it's what we do, right? And so I mean there's a lot of studies out there that showcase, hey, even if you have a great interview, if that first impression, that resume was the first thing that they came across and you had the company spelled wrong, you had some
Mhm.
simple grammar mistakes, that will still affect subconsciously their decision on hiring you. So,
It does for sure. Because like I said, I probably see 300 to 400 resumes a day. And
yeah,
unfortunately, there's probably some great qualified candidates that I've put in the junk box because of
yeah.
the fact that they spelled a company wrong or a
Hmm.
city wrong. So it's just attention to detail. So that
Yeah.
right away shows me that you don't have it. And
Hmm.
so I wouldn't actually sometimes I'll actually be kind enough to email them back and say, hey, by the way, you spelled Edmonton wrong, or you spelled Canada wrong, or you spelled your company name wrong, but I won't consider them going forward. But I will probably
Right.
give them a heads up that there's some spelling errors on their resume for sure.
Yeah. Which is very nice of you because you're doing that for free. I know you are. So
Totally.
that's just out of the goodness of your heart. And I mean, again, I mean, this is going to be repetitive. I mean, probably sound repetitive, but I just want to emphasize what you said again. Use the sources that are out there, even if it's just some simple things. Because I know with AI, we've seen some applicant tracking systems that'll detect if AI wrote the whole thing, but you can use it and make sure that the grammar's proper. You can use it to make sure the skill sets align. Do different things to make sure you're not coming across as somebody that saw a job application and just put something together in 20 minutes and sent it out because that's honestly, it sounds like it's going to hurt you more. Than It's going to help you because
It
then,
definitely does hurt you. But I think another thing, even to segue on that, is make sure
Mhm.
your LinkedIn profile is very much up to date. Like if
Yeah.
you switch jobs, make sure your recent job is on there. Same with your resume. I've had senior individuals for, jobs that are $250,000 and they're like, oh, well, I don't have my most recent job on there. And it's like, well, maybe go back and put it on there and then send it back to me because I'm
Yeah.
not doing it for you. Another thing is your LinkedIn profiles, like make sure they are up to date. They're well written. You have a profile picture just of you, not you and your
Hmm.
girlfriend, not you and your dog, just of
Yeah.
you. And make sure it's up to date and use AI to your advantage. Like go through and say, write a skill set summary and you can cut and paste your resume into AI and say, write me a summary of me. And
Mhm.
you can ask it to do it again if you don't like what's come out, and you can keep asking it to do it again and again. So use it to
Yeah.
your advantage. But I would say you need to make sure your LinkedIn profile is extremely up to date. Your social media is locked down because technically I go through all of that. I
Mhm.
I make
Like
sure that
Instagram and Facebook and everything
yeah,
there as
like
well.
you don't want to be public because I
Right.
actually go research that. And there's been unfortunate times where I've had candidates that are at the third or fourth interview stage, final stage, and then we've gone on to their social media, which now I go on to it ahead of time, but prior, like
Right.
10 years ago, we didn't.
Yeah.
Um, and then I've found things on there, or clients have found things on there, and they've reneged offers, or they've chosen to not go forward with the candidate because of their social media. So lock it down. Like you don't need everybody to see what you're up to.
Yeah. Yes, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to, that segues right into the next thought that I was wanting to talk about was LinkedIn personal brand with thought leadership. What are you seeing
Mhm.
with why does that matter more than ever?
So technically, that's where we find people. Like recruiters are
Hmm.
headhunters. So if you are working in some of the bigger agencies, like you're just a resume thrower for sure. People
Hmm.
apply to the, they'll throw resumes. But as a true headhunter, which is what we do, which is why
Hmm.
companies, bigger companies will use a more boutique firm,
Hmm.
we headhunt on LinkedIn 8 hours a day. That's all we
Hmm.
do. So I'm on there from morning till night finding people that are not, they're called passive candidates. So they're not actively looking for work. And those are
Yeah.
the ones that the clients want, right? We need to
Hmm.
take them from, Peter to St. Paul kind of thing. And
Hmm.
so if your LinkedIn isn't thought provoking, isn't up to date, isn't professional, we'll most likely pass you by as well. Yeah, just make sure everything's selling you because that is your first selling piece is LinkedIn for sure. Because any headhunter worth their weight in gold, we're on there 24/7 finding
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. And when you, so kind of a scenario for somebody listening, if you were looking on LinkedIn, you find a great candidate, how often do you, once you like their profile, do you dive into their most recent posts and does activity on those posts affect your likelihood of reaching out, or is it more the content on the profile itself that you're looking at?
I would say it's the content on the profile first.
Hmm.
So say for example, like I'm looking for a manufacturing engineer in Texas that has oil and gas. So when I do my searches on LinkedIn, I'm going to go find manufacturing engineer. I'll use AI to spit out titles because technically, one company calls you a manufacturing engineer, another company might have a different title for it. So I'll
Hmm.
ask AI to provide me all the titles that would match a manufacturing engineer. So I'll come up with
Hmm.
like 10 different titles. So I'll research all those, then the degree. So make sure you're like, there's so many people on there that might not have everything listed on their LinkedIn. Like they might not put their education on there, but you should, because that's
Yeah.
a parameter that I might skip out on if, or you might get skipped out on if you don't have that listed.
Yeah.
Say for example, if you're bilingual, make sure that's listed on LinkedIn because if I'm looking for a bilingual HR director in Montreal, you're just taking it as a given that everybody knows you're bilingual in Montreal. You're probably not going to come up in that search. So make
Hmm.
sure you put a lot of thought into your LinkedIn profile and make sure it's stacked, like you're selling yourself so you can be found. And then check your LinkedIn messages on a daily basis. Like there's hundreds of candidates that I'll reach out to and they'll never get back to me because they don't check LinkedIn. Or I'll get a message 2 years later and be like, oh yeah, I got this message 2 years ago for this job. Is it still open? I'm like, no, it's not, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
now maybe you should check your LinkedIn every day or have the alerts that come to your text, to your phone or to your email that you've gotten a message because
Hmm.
there's so many candidates that are being passed by because they're not getting back to us after we've reached out to them.
Yeah. And you do have a limited time window, right? You got a time frame
Very
to
limited.
fill this
Yeah, with
position.
recruitment, I
So
would say 2 weeks is your sweet spot. If you're
yeah.
not, you don't have those candidates in front of that client within a week or 2 weeks, like either you need to go back and massage that job description with the client, or you're not hitting the mark on the candidate side.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good to know. And so in line with what I'm seeing. So I'm happy that we are on the same page and that clients, our clients and potential candidates and other potential clients for you are hearing this and understanding it because it's such an important topic. All these topics with LinkedIn, with your resume, grammar, or just read over what you're sending, right? Even if you think it's just a random email you're sending out, make sure it's on point. Make sure that it's really you're thinking of as your first impression. I really
Of
like that
course, right?
thread. that's kind
It's
of
the old
going through this
adage. You
conversation.
have
Yeah.
one chance to impress. And so it's like when you're going for an interview, you make sure you're dressed appropriately. So at the same time, too, when you're sending out your resume, that is your one chance to impress. So
Hmm.
put some thought into it. Write a well-written cover letter, use the tools that are out there to your advantage,
Hmm.
and make sure LinkedIn is up to date and your social media is locked down.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big one
Okay.
for sure.
I appreciate that. I appreciate all the information. Stephanie, thank you so much for your time today. We
Of
appreciate you as a
course.
guest. I hope to have you on again soon and really enjoy your insights. So what what is the best way if somebody's listening, they're a potential client for you or maybe a potential candidate that's looking to be placed for a position you're placing right now, what's the best way for them to reach you?
You can go to our website, which is indemand.ca. You can email info@indemand.ca or call toll free, which is 866-424-8505.
Perfect. Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks,
And
Jesse.
no problem. I'll include those in the link below with so that everybody can see all that information. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Appreciate your
Of
time
course.
and looking
Thanks,
forward to talking to
Jesse.
you again. Yeah, thank
Take
you.
care.